Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I'm Will Dragon, and this is Suzerain, where we are the president of Swordland. The glorious president, I would like to add, who is going to change this country to be the best country there ever once was in this fictional setting. And so, we're trying to push through our current reform. It's something we did very much base our campaign on. We said we were going to change to a more diplomatic government, which it keeps pushing me left just to tick the button, which we are going to try and do. We're going to keep our veto, but a supermajority of the Grand National Assembly can overturn my veto. The Supreme Court's vote will be removed. To change the Constitution will be removed. I can be impeached, but the Supreme Court and the Grand National Assembly have to agree on it. I am going to appoint my own ministers. The election threshold will go down to 8%. I was very reluctant to put it down to 3%. The presidential decrees. I may issue decrees in certain subjects without going through the Grand National Assembly. I want to keep emergency powers, basically, was my one for that. There is no term limits. If the people want to keep electing me or anybody else, that is allowed. Impeachment of justice. The justices cannot be impeached, and the member of honor is going to be removed. So our guy, where is he? Here he is. He's on this island. Ex-President Sol. He is, who's pretty much living up there like a king, all on the government's expenses. We'll be having that money back, quite frankly. And so, what else is going through? Investment in Grooney. That did happen. That is correct. News. What have we got going on today? Richter's victory over Rain. Our sources informed us that the plan is underway by the government to start the drafting of the reform package. The Rain administration has reached out to the PFJP led by Friends Richter. Despite his history of criticizing and opposing the USP, even calling Rain yet another pawn that was put forward as candidate. Yes. Recent data-driven forecasts from our economy analysts indicate that repealing the Energy Protection Act could unlock a new era of robust growth in Swordland. A thorough examination of market trends underscores the tremendous potential for economic expansion, should energy companies be granted unfettered access to the market. I'm not looking to appeal it, if I'm perfectly honest. Dinner with the business council members, or why does this city information have a little button on it? Not quite sure why. There's nothing new there from what I can tell. And in Holsword, we have, can read a report. Vice President Vector reported that, along with Lucian Gallard, the committee has started working on the written aspects of the package as per the needs outlined previously. They will soon get the legal team involved to complete the writing process. The needed 150 signatures for the proposal has started to be collected within the USP. And if I remember, not my overview, not my codex connections. Yes. So, yes, there's 250 altogether. And so I can't remember. So, yeah, I think that's what we need 150 to push it through, I think. Or do we need a 2/3 majority? I'm not actually 100% sure on that one. But we've got some work to do. And so here we have a meeting on the Energy Protection Act of 1932. As the morning sun streamed through the window of my presidential office, an imminent meeting loomed on my agenda. In a quarter of an hour, I was set to discuss the Energy Protection Act of 1932 with Ministers Graff, Hull, and Weesey. The recent abrogation in the Grand National Assembly, coupled with the ongoing dialogues with Gassam, had only served to amplify the discourse surrounding the legislation. I was sipping my morning coffee and enjoying a quiet moment of solitude when David arrived, characteristically early. Very good morning to you, Mr. President. I trust I'm not imposing by arriving ahead of schedule. Given the serious topic we're addressing, an early start might just be what's needed. Not at all, David. I'm relieved to hear that, Anton. I depart earlier for my appointments nowadays, as the stairs of the capital have become more of a challenge than I would like to admit. It's not the stairs we're battling, but the relentless march of time. Would you like some coffee or tea? I've already had my tea today, as per my doctor's advice. She suggests chamomile in the morning and sage tea in the evening for optimal health. Listening to the doctor does bring me some comfort. Feels as though my throat has been refreshed thanks to her. His gaze drifted, locking onto something beyond the window. A colossal zeppelin traversed the sky over the Maroon district. For a fleeting moment, it blotted out the sun before gently veering to the left, letting light flood the office once more. I still remember the first airships in Swordland. We purchased them from Quenelle after the war, during the birth of what Sol called the Second Republic. Our infrastructure lay in ruins, and those zeppelins offered a much-needed lifeline, a chance to traverse and rebuild. And then, thanks to our Research Council's diligent efforts, we started manufacturing our own in Gelsord. It's fascinating to think how much we depended on foreign help after the war. We've come a long way since then. The manufacturing of zeppelins in Gelsord was truly a turning point. Do you think we might have leaned too heavily on the zeppelins for our transportation needs? Perhaps we should have invested more in rebuilding our roads and railways. At the time, the destroyed roads, bridges, and all made air travel the most suitable option. But now I am glad that your presidency is focused on building up our infrastructure. Our reliance on others was temporary, a stepping stone towards the self-sufficiency we achieved with the National Autarky Plan. Even though it had downsides, I still consider it a success. What was it? Also sometimes referred to as the Solonomics, was an economic policy developed by Tarquin Sol. We're going back to that guy. A pause fell over the room. David's gaze landed on the portrait of Tarquin Sol hanging in the presidential office. His eyes lingered on the stern face of the old leader. A sigh escaped his lips. Now, when I think of the EPA, my mind is carried back to the formative years of post-Civil War Holsword in the 1930s. The debates, the passion, the potential for transformation. It was a time of renewed optimism. It is our duty now to learn from the past and strive for a better future. What applied back then won't apply to now. I can see why the Energy Protection Act was so crucial at the time. We had to safeguard our energy sector from foreign interference, especially in the context of the post-Civil War economic situation. Life in Holsword back then was tough. Electricity blackouts, ruined infrastructure, unemployment, gangs. I remember that Sol's pardons to armed rebels did a lot to quell the rampant unrest. Sol's pardons were undoubtedly a contentious move, as they sparked debates about the extent of amnesty granted and the implications for justice. However, it's worth acknowledging that by offering clemency, Sol aimed to provide an opportunity for healing and reconciliation in a divided society. I do not agree with all of the measures enacted by the technocratic government of that era, but some were undeniably effective. In the end, it took a collective effort to resemble our nation's fragmented pieces, reassembled. I'm sure you remember those dark days yourself. All of this text, by the way, gives me very much hope with what I'm trying to do with the Young Swords and the Red Party. I know you were just a student at the Lacavan Business School, far from Holsword, but the armed rebels did reach your area. It was a surreal time studying business principles whilst Chaos ensued just a few miles away. Those disturbances did not deter me from my studies. In fact, they reinforced the importance of my education. Stability and order is important to our nation, yet sometimes disorder is necessary for change. David turned towards the large framed portrait of his father, Arthur Sanako Wisi, hanging on the wall. Painted with rich, warm hues, it captured the first president of Swordland in his prime. A spark of determination gleamed in his eyes, and his mouth was set in a gentle, firm smile. A reflection of his belief in a better future for our country. Your father's legacy still looms large. Has it influenced your own views? Swordland wouldn't be what it is today without your father. Arthur S. Wisi. It's a shame that such an influential man died under such tragic circumstances. My father was a visionary, a man who sought to modernize Swordland into a secular, democratic republic. I've always been guided by his principles. His ability to mobilize public support for revolutionary change has been a constant inspiration to me. He looked back at the portrait with a mix of pride and sadness. In a way, Tarquin Sol did carry on my father's legacy. Under his leadership, we transitioned from a military government to a civilian one, and experienced our first multi-party elections. But over time, he drifted away from the ideals of reform and progress that my father held so dear. His visionary zeal succumbed to the more pragmatic, more conservative, and sometimes even regressive dictates of political survival. Still, one must credit Tarquin Sol for extricating our nation from the ashes. An earlier resignation might have been beneficial. His ingrained traditions seem to have done more harm than good in the long run. There's merit to that argument. The lingering influence of the Sol's tradition may have hampered Alfonso's ability to bring about the changes he envisioned. Alfonso, for all his flaws, did seek to set the nation back on a path of progress, with his focus on a free market and economic liberalization. His EPA amendments, for example, were a severe departure from Sol's national autarky plan, but many praised the way that it opened the doors for unprecedented foreign investment in our energy economy. The NAP was a cornerstone for our post-war recovery. I wonder, could we have done more with it? What's the NAP? Oh, National Autarky Plan. Got it. First it was the State Educators Corps, then the SSC Bills, and then slowly the EPA. He wanted to raise every trace of Tarquin Sol's Second Republic. Those same amendments also opened the door to corruption. Do you think the EPA still holds relevance today? I heavily disagree with the move at the time. Even as Executive Vice President in 1946, Alfonso simply tried to change the country too fast. Indeed, no policy is immune to misuse. Alfonso's amendments were ambitious, but they also left room for exploitation. We must remain vigilant against such risks. Just as the conversation hit a pause, the door swung open and the other ministers arrived. Simon Hull entered first with a confident stride. Good morning, Mr. President. David, I trust the discussion is progressing well. Lilius followed closely behind. She walked in the room with an air of calm authority, her gaze sweeping across the room. Gentlemen, I hope I'm not interrupting anything crucial. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you all here. We have some important discussions on the agenda today, particularly concerning the EPA. Let's get right to the heart of the matter. Today we have the opportunity to shape the economic strategy of Swordsland for decades to come. The EPA has long stood as a key contention and debate point of the National Autarky Plan. This matter is a discussion of how Swordsland sees itself and how we position ourselves in the world. Our nation has taken very different economic approaches in the last 4 decades. Mr. President has decided to lean on promoting a market economy, which should give us a clear indicator. Should we decide to increase the EPA threshold to 49% or eliminate it entirely, it could spark an influx of foreign investment. Given our current economic predicament, this would be a significant boost. Promoting a market economy does not inherently translate to prosperity for all. It can lead to a concentration of wealth, with the rich getting richer while the middle and working classes struggle. We need to ensure that the benefits of economic growth are shared equitably across all layers of Swordish society. I agree. The welfare of our citizens must be our primary concern. I'm glad we see eye to eye on this matter, Mr. President. Our welfare as a whole depends on that of the least fortunate amongst us. Mr. President, Lilius, shall we return to the subject of the EPA? The current version of the EPA dates back to 1949. President Alfonso's amendment raised the cap on foreign investment in Swordish energy companies up to 20%. In my view, it was a necessary step to attract foreign investment and stimulate our economy. We must remember that Swordsland was facing an economic crisis during this tenure, and these changes provided a lifeline for our energy industries. But did it increase foreign ownership actually lead to substantial economic growth? Changes to the Energy Protection Act first I harbored serious reservations. Did it actually have substantial economic growth? Because, I mean, of 1949, isn't it like 1953 or something? Like 4 years later, we're screwed again. While the increase in foreign ownership alone didn't lead to a drastic upturn in economic growth, it did have a positive effect. Facilitated foreign investment and provided our industries with much needed capital. The effects of such policy changes often take time to fully manifest, but they lay the groundwork for future economic development. Again, takes time to manifest. 4 years later, we're buggered. I'm not liking this. The Assembly has spoken on this matter, and as it stands, the Energy Protection Act of 1932 will not be repealed. It's clear that our colleagues have recognized the potential risks of exposing our energy sector to foreign ownership. While this doesn't end the debate, it does underline the importance of respecting our Assembly's decision. I wholeheartedly support it. This is true. I'm not even going to read the rest. I respect the decision of the Assembly, Lilius. However, we mustn't allow this setback to deter us from exploring our options. The global landscape is ever evolving, and we must adapt accordingly. It's also important to remember that the Assembly's decision is not the final word. There is room for further legislative efforts and executive initiatives. When it comes to the EPA, I believe we should increase our threshold for foreign investment. In fact, my preference would be to remove the threshold entirely. This would undoubtedly strengthen any institutions such as Gassam and Swordish Petroleum. We've seen Rizia's interest in the former, and I know Lesbia has had its eye on the latter for some time. That's precisely what I'm worried about. We have to remember that we're dealing with national security as well as economics. Reverting to the Sol era 10% limit or keeping the law as it is would be a safer approach. We cannot risk our energy infrastructure falling into foreign hands, especially not to Rumberg. Exactly. I'm not gonna lie, I am not gonna put the energy of the country at the mercy of foreign powers. Plus, I'm gonna respect my assembly. Crazy thing for a president to say, I think. I see merit in both your arguments. Yes, we need to protect our national security, but we also need to consider the economic implications. Perhaps a mixed approach would work best. Also, again, it does growth in the long terms. Again, we're like, what, 4 years later? And we're buggered. I think it's nonsense. What if we increase the limit to 49%, thereby attracting foreign investment while maintaining sort of control over critical energy sectors? Changes impact corporations like Gassam, which could sell to any entity in the revised law. Lilius, you mentioned national security risks. Could you elaborate further on that? The national security risks are significant. Foreign entities could use their stake in our energy sector as leverage in diplomatic or economic negotiations. National security risks are always a concern when discussing foreign ownership. That's why it's crucial to have thorough vetting and monitoring processes in place. Well, we do know my country's corrupt as crazy, so I don't know how well that vetting's going to go. Don't forget about the importance of economic security. In a globalized world, economic strength can be just as critical as military might. But yes, it's essential to maintain strict oversight and regulations to ensure national interests aren't compromised. Considering potential foreign buyers, how would the Energy Protection Act impact corporations? How would changing the Energy Protection Act affect energy prices? How would they affect energy prices? With increased foreign investments, we could potentially see a decrease in energy prices, but we should also consider the potential impact on job security and national control of our energy sector. Changing the EPA could lead to increased energy prices as foreign entities could manipulate the market. With increased competition and foreign investment, we could also see a decrease in energy prices. The more players in the market, the more competitive the prices will be. It's time to settle this subject. Given the turbulent economic landscape, maintaining the status quo of the Energy Protection Act could offer us stability. We're already open to foreign investments at a 20% threshold. Changing this percentage may introduce unexpected challenges and could complicate our foreign relations. I firmly believe in the sovereignty and strength of our nation. Returning the threshold to 10% as it was during the Sol era could protect us from undue foreign influence and ensure that our energy sector remains in Swordish hands. While I maintain that increasing foreign investment could significantly stimulate our economy. An increase to 49% could be a balanced compromise, signaling to the world that Swordland is open for business while retaining majority control of our assets. But some potential partners, particularly ATO countries, might regard even that as insufficient. We must consider the far-reaching implications of our actions, especially in light of our recent dealings with Gassam. Mr. President, your decision to position Swordland as the sole Gassam investor certainly gives us more control over the gas sector, but it has increased our financial burden significantly. We must review our fiscal policies. So it's all up to us, and we're proving that. Our administration needs to protect the jobs of Gassam workers, and this investment ensures that. I have little interest beyond this. This investment signifies our commitment to Swordland's energy independence. Let's put our resources to work for the Swordish people. The jobs of Gassam workers, and yes. Simon meticulously adjusted his glasses. Don't you do that to me. Considering we're investing heavily in Gassam, our decision about the EPA will greatly impact the attractiveness of the remaining shares to foreign investors. A reduction in the EPA could pave the way for potential profits from shares, whereas total removal may invite an unpredictable rush for the remaining 45%. Our investment in Gassam reinforces Swordland's sovereignty. However, altering the EPA might dilute that sovereignty. I caution against drastic changes that may leave us vulnerable to foreign influence. I feel like we're kind of going around in a bit of a circle here now. Like, didn't we just say we were gonna make a decision? Limited foreign investment, however, our 30% stake in gas would remain significant and protected. Observing the status quo ensures that our 30% stake remains significant. Yes, but would we be missing out on potential growth? You are both right. Keeping the status quo ensures stability, but we must weigh this against potential trade opportunities. Come on, seriously. We're going round in circles now. Long-term impact of a decision, foreign investment might bring immediate financial gains, but would risk losing control of our energy sector. Yes. I would say we've covered the implications of your EPA decision fairly thoroughly, Mr. President. Our actions should be guided by the best interests of our nation. It's time for us to make a decision. EPA removed, EPA at 49%, EPA kept at 20%. Stability is key in these uncertain times. It's a safe choice, though it might limit our economic growth. It may not be what Sol would have wanted, but it is a prudent decision. The daughter room opened. Livia Suno carried a tray laden with an assortment of beverages. She was a little clumsy as she maneuvered around the room, refilling cups and glasses with tea, coffee, and water. Excuse me, gentlemen and madam, I've brought refreshments. You know, I generally think she's trying to secretly gather information on me. I mean, she seems to really too much. Either she's just gossiping with her friends about it, or in the worst scale, she's passing this information on. I generally reckon she's selling information onto the newspapers. That's what I'm going to go for. I thought the meeting had ended and wanted to refill the refreshments. As she finishes serving the beverages, Livia retreated towards the door. She glanced around the room one last time before quietly backing out. So you like why she's glancing around the room one last time? The meeting resumed, our conversation growing slightly louder over the clink of cups and glasses. She is gathering information for one of the papers, I guarantee it. While we are here, I will inform you all that I've been lending my expertise to Minister Bennywall in relation to the Workers' Rights Bill. I believe it's crucial to ensure fair treatment for our workforce, and it is nearing presentation. Thank you, it's commendable, and I hope it brings good change. Thank you, Mr. President. The bill aims to prioritize workers' well-being. It's a step towards a more humane economic system. I share your sentiments, Mr. President. However, we must be careful to avoid encouraging anti-business tendencies. I concur, Mr. President. Ensuring the rights of our workers is paramount, although we must be cautious of any hidden agendas. Anyway, I have been working on our upcoming term budget meeting and a proposal for business taxation changes. Specifically, we're considering a range of 10% tax changes for small to medium enterprises and large corporations. This could be a significant move for our economic landscape. Such a taxation approach could indeed invigorate our economy, but we must ensure it doesn't burden our SMEs unduly, small to medium enterprises. We should be careful with large changes to taxation. They could be unintended consequences. I'm very satisfied that we are executing bold changes under this administration. I appreciate your insight, Mr. President. Ensuring the survival and growth of our SMEs is at the forefront of our considerations. Tax changes can indeed have a significant impact on our economy. We must consider their implications carefully. Large private corporations have enjoyed significant benefits and loopholes for far too long. They should pay their fair share. As the ministers rose from their seats, the late morning light spilled into the room through the ornate windows. It seemed to signal the conclusion of the meeting. Thank you all for your insights and collaboration today. Have a great afternoon. Our unity is our strength. Let's continue to work together for the good of Swordland. We made some important decisions today. Our work is our legacy. Let's make sure it's one that Swordland can be proud of. Thank you for the discussion. I'll continue working on our priorities. Goodbye. See you at the term budget meeting. Until next time, dear colleagues, take care and see you soon. Okay, so that moves forward. We have news. We have Whole Sword today. EPA status quo, a wise decision. And Swordland today, who will very much have a go at me. Maintain Energy Protection Act threshold at 20% has raised eyebrows. Critics argue that it represents a missed opportunity for reform. So now the question is, do I think she's working for Swordland or Whole Sword? I think it's Swordland today. I think she is a... I think she's a spy in my administration. The Nedim Mining Corporation has discovered new untapped coal reserves in Mobile. The corporation suggests that the investment in Lauren could significantly improve output, opening opportunities for economic growth in the region. The corporation is in the process of assessing the feasibility and potential of these reserves. Minister of Rural Development Gus Manga is touring the Gruni region and Borin as part of his research for a new rural development plan. The tour includes several site visits and meetings with the local officials and communities. This initiative indicates a proactive approach to rural development with a specific focus on understanding ground realities. The outcomes of this tour will contribute to the vision of the new development plan. In Valgum, local farmers are seeking support as the city's agricultural industry is falling behind. The farmers point out that the lack of access to modern farming equipment and insufficient infrastructure are major hurdles. They believe that targeted support and investment could rejuvenate the agricultural sector and contribute to the region's economy. And I would like to hope, because if I sweep all the way over here, I believe potentially in places over here, hang on, Grunny was the worst, by far and large. Do we have, I feel like we have hunger up here somewhere. No, oh, poverty. There wasn't critical levels of hunger, it was levels of poverty. Agricultural growth potential. Sano is exhibiting strong potential for agricultural growth. The demand from neighboring Lesbia is increasing, suggesting an opportunity for expansion in the region's agricultural sector. Local farmers are optimistic about the future, but they also highlight the need for strategic investment and support to capitalize on this potential. Remains of former Black Battalion members have been discovered near the site of the ISM incident. It was still down. Project was the route of constitution works to the site. I'm trying to figure out who Black Battalion members are. The deceased have been identified as Swordish Armed Forces officers who were pardoned by President Sol's government and were deployed in border security at the time. Investigations are ongoing to determine the cause and circumstances of their deaths. The discovery has reignited interest in the Black Battalion's history, and authorities are urging anyone with information related to the case to come forward. Okay, and so then we will go with our Business Council members. We're in Lacavan to walk with the Business Council to assess weaknesses in the economy. Simon organised a dinner with the affluent economic figureheads of Swordland. When we arrived, the streets were bustling with the activity even before the atmosphere in the country was tense. Lacavaners didn't seem very worried. Together with Walter Tusk, yep, that guy, the one who tried to bribe me, Edith Agnock, Mikhail Avon, and Simon Hull, we entered the renowned Esteria restaurant by the coast. A short blonde man whose embroidered pocket read manager greeted us and waved his arms in excitement as he told us how pleased he was to have us in his establishment. Beaming with pride, he led us to a private room and got us seated at a large table, covered for the occasion with a maroon tablecloth. We were quickly served by a group of servers. Walter spoke as they started taking our order. I recommend the Lacavan salmon of this place, President. I know that you're from Lacavan, but I bet you haven't tasted anything like this before. I've tasted this greatness many times here already. Excuse me, President. I should have known that a man of your caliber would be a regular at Asteria. I'm maybe win some brownie points. The servers took their notes and asked about the second dish. Salad. The servers placed glasses in front of each of us and served bread and water. After the taken orders, they quickly left us alone in the private room. Mr. President, I didn't have the possibility to thank you for coming today. Your presence means a great deal. Indeed, sir, it is an honor to dine with you. Great to be here with the members of the Business Council. We should thank Simon for organizing this meeting. No need for that, I hope everybody enjoys the evening. Simon gestured at the expensive-looking red wine bottle that one of the servers had just brought to the table. Mr. President? No, thank you. Are you serious, Mr. Rain? Are you going to pass on a Chateau de Falanco 1934? Thank you, but I'm not going to drink this evening. I have to insist. I can't drink now when the country is suffering. Sad times indeed. There was a brief silence at the table before Simon cut in. Let's not get ourselves down, gentlemen. After everybody was served their preferred drinks, Simon stood up with his glass raised. I'd like to raise a toast to all of you here today. We're meeting here tonight in difficult times, but I believe that, with hard work, cooperation, and trust, we will get through this period as well. I'd like to thank Mr. Rain again for his decisiveness when it comes to the economic policies. I'm sure we will stop this recession. I'm still waiting for that line to not be going so far down. I also thank Mr. Tusk for being here with us today. His presence is an honor. Yeah, he tried to bribe me once again. Not a fan. And of course, my colleagues from the Business Council, Miss Agnuk and Mr. Avon. Without you, none of these would have been possible. Let's drink to future cooperation and growth. For a prosperous Swordland, everybody raised their glasses and toasted each other. After a couple more minutes, the servers arrived with our meals. When I tasted the food, I went back to my past. It reminded me of my childhood in this city. Even though I couldn't recall much about my father, I remembered that he also loved the food of Asteria. So how did you find the food of the best fine dining restaurant in Lacavan, Mr. President? Fine food is like fine art, but this particular one is a masterpiece. I know exactly what you mean. Art is something else. It embodies so much about us and the world surrounding our lives, and food there was an art of everything. The art of making money, food, wine, and love. Well, that was rude. How are things going in the Maroon Palace? The pressure must have increased after you attended that funeral. I also think he made a pass at my secretary. The pressure was already high, not much has changed. It did, but it was the right decision. Pressure was already high, not much has changed. You will get through this. As we conversed with Mikhail, I heard Walter raise his voice in an apparent argument with Edith and Simon. We both stopped to listen. Arcasia knows the right way of doing business. Their approach to the world is real and raw. I prefer that cutthroat approach in comparison to the niceties. Well, I mean, it's a nice country to visit too. I have traveled there often in business trips. Their attitude on all countries are nice to visit if you have the cash. Stay silent. It certainly depends on what you are looking for. Cultural tourism doesn't require a fancy hotel. Last time I went somewhere for that sort of thing was at university, and even then we had our wild times thanks to Convath's connected entourage. Also, Walter is taking us down the rabbit hole again. By the way, I saw that the construction of the railway has already started. I have my concerns about the company, but I hope they do a good job. That project will surely boost our economy if done correctly. The mood is already becoming positive. I have to congratulate Mr. Rain for starting such a massive project. Thank you for your support, Mr. Raven. Of course. Mr. Hull also deserves credit, of course, our great economy minister. Is there a joke coming? Why? I thought you said you were great at economy. I've heard that you've bought a new villa, Simon. I don't comment on rumors, but I'll make an exception since we are among friends. It's true. Where is the property? It is a small seaside villa at the outskirts of Conriat. It's just a modest house with a swimming pool and a small golf course in the property. What? He's got a small golf course in the property. Modest? Are you being sarcastic with me? Leave the man be, President. Edith, who was sitting to my left, gently put her hand over my arm for a few seconds. Come on, let's not talk about finance or politics for now. We came here to relax. She turned to Walter and Simon. Isn't that right, gentlemen? They nodded at her and took a sip from their drinks. She slightly leaned towards me. So, Mr. Rain, why don't you tell us what's behind that strong character of yours? I've heard that your father was a very wealthy man. Would you say that it contributed a lot to your success? So it didn't contribute much. My success has nothing to do with that. It certainly helped. We had money, but we weren't happy. What's that supposed to mean? My success has nothing to do with that. Of course not. You've worked hard for it. After all, money can't buy diligence. I never met your family, Mr. President. How are they doing, if you don't mind me asking? They're doing great. We have no problems. That's great to hear. Your son must be very proud of you. Family is everything. My advice would be to make sure that Frank has a solid relationship with you. He is your future, after all. He's going through the teenager period. It's difficult to connect with him. He's a little shy. Wish that was my son's biggest problem. Darren seemed to be doing fine. I saw that his yacht party in Benfey made the local news. While the rascal didn't even ask for permission to use the yacht and just took it, he basically stole it. Good news is that I finally convinced him to go to university. He will study economics in Lackhaven Business School. That's a good choice. Having a degree in Swordland separates you from the rabble, and we especially need more people who understand economics. Talking of which, it's great that we have another leader who actually studies economics and understands it, like Mr. Alfonso. Thank you. I hope we can repair the damages to our economy. We can't fail like Alfonso did. A correction. It wasn't his policies that destroyed him, it was the old guard. What do you mean? He threatened their economic power base over the country through a vast privatization plan. They removed him and backed you after. Walter, stop with the conspiracy theories. I think we've had enough drinks. After a long silence, followed by some chit-chat, Walter ordered a bottle of whiskey. That's one good-looking bottle. The waiters brought one of the finest Arcasian whiskies. It was time for a toast. I'm not going to drink. Fine. Let's just drink this up and leave. Simon. Simon stood up. He seemed to have a slight issue with his balance. May the wheels of fortune always turn in our favor. The future of abundance awaits us. Cheers to that. I think it's time we call it a night. Edith stood up. Most of us were all a little tipsy at this point, except me, I would like to hope, because I haven't been drinking. I want to thank you, Mr. President, for joining us, and you, Simon, for putting all this together. Thank you all for being here. It was great. Thank you. Thanks for being here. After bidding our farewells, we slowly walked out of the restaurant. The moon was shining bright as everyone except Walter left in their luxury cars. President, a moment alone, please. He called me inside the small VIP lounge. I'll follow him. I'll see what he's got to say for himself. Usually, the Lotharberg spokesman doesn't directly comment on the administration, but I'd like to say a few things since this was a special evening. I'm all ears. Finally, a president that listens to the people. It won't be easy to pass a new constitution through the Assembly and the Supreme Court. We can help you get it through if you in turn help us with a few economic requests. Walter lit his cigar and took a few drags before continuing. The consensus is that we see eye to eye in the economic direction that you have taken by promoting a market economy. I'm glad that the group is supportive. There are many who put their trust in you. Walter smiled. He looked me in the eye. You rejected our previous discreet offer to pick Underhall Construction for the execution of the first mega infrastructure project. This action led to disappointment in the group. We are aware of the upcoming tax meeting, and it would be a step in the right direction if private corporations would get a tax cut. To boost the economy with job creation, of course, and the positive side effect would be our support to the administration throughout the entire term. Lotharberg will not influence me. Oh, let's not be hasty. The recession will end if Lotharberg is on your side, President. Why can't we all just be friends? I have other plans for the economy. That's a shame. I did offer you a peace branch. There was an awkward silence. Either way, President, we are here and always ready to work with you if you change your mind. Don't forget that. There was nothing to work together on. Good evening. Walter left and Serge came to pick me up. Again, trying to sweet talk and bribe me. Car bomb attacking over here, that's not good. RV police reported that there were no casualties or injuries, that's good. The initial investigation found that the car was rigged with a timed bomb. No perpetrators have been found connected to the incident so far. Further investigations are ongoing and details have not been shared with the public. Down here in Rebel. School poisoning. Vilma Asir, who was working at the school kitchen, was apprehended with connection to last week's school cafeteria poisoning in Rebel. The act was found to be politically motivated as the perpetrator connected to the banned Bluedish Freedom Party. Asir is suspected to have been an active member of the Bluedish Freedom Front since the start of this year. She has been sentenced to 60 years in prison. Okay, then so we have a meeting here. We have nothing global, it seems. And so for news, bill on the rights of workers being drafted. The Grand National Assembly of Swordland will vote on a bill on Thursday to protect workers' rights in Swordland that supporters are calling the most ambitious pro-labor legislation in decades. President meets with the Business Council. Contents of the meeting remain secret. Mobile mine disaster, 112 dead. Yikes. Last we got the report, it was up to 82. The current death toll sits at 112 dead, with many of the miners still trapped inside. The rescue operations continue without any sleep. Investigators have told us that this might have happened due to the neglect of Nedham Mining Group. Families of miners and people of Mobile showed up in protest at the site of the disaster. Lackavan League of Women March. Hundreds of women organised by the Swordish League of Women marched and called for gender equality in the country. The group held signs highlighting the issues of domestic violence, the wage gap, maternity leave, and sexist attitudes in the education system. Police forces quickly created a security cordon to protect the march after a large group of religious counter-protesters arrived. Calls for equality were drowned out by the large group of conservatives. The protests were a clear reflection of the division that surrounds the country. It also raises questions if the First Lady Monica Rain's agenda to raise awareness and trigger change on the issue will bear fruit. Budget allocation, okay. The preparations for the government budget were finished. Most of the cabinet gathered in the White Room for the important occasion. Oh, hello, everybody! Minister of Health, Minister of Justice, Defense. Nearly half a year has passed since my inauguration. The cabinet looked overworked. I would like to use the opportunity for a statement. Of course, sir. Each and every one of you is very capable, but it's what we do as a team that counts. We are doing great work, and this is just the beginning. There will be many more good things to come. Years ago, all of us gathered to change the course of history. Now I'm proud of what we achieved and what is to come. The ministers weren't as motivated by my statement as I had hoped. Thank you, sir. Moving on. Sadly, Peter Vector and Gus Manger and David Weesey won't be attending this meeting. They're working on the upcoming trade agreements with Welland and Agnolia. May the Lord be with them. Ciara gave a barely disguised eye roll. Ciara Walder, who is Ministry of Education and Technology. Did you just roll your eyes at me, young lady? If I did, it's because religion has no place at a government budget meeting. I was merely expressing my wishes for a successful trade deal. Freedom of expression must be protected at all costs. Was it not, Miss Morgna? Actually, in this case, I agree with Ciara. Or Cia, Miss Welder. Ciara flashed her an appreciative smile. According to Swordland's law regarding the separation of church and state, she broke off as she noticed that Simon, Lucian, and Iosef were looking at the three female ministers in stony silence. Ladies, let's leave the extraneous chit-chat for an afternoon tea. Don't comment. Simon started loudly shuffling some documents around. All eyes turned to the Minister of Economy. Thank you for the compliment. Today it's a big day. We must prioritize our spending wisely in order to achieve the goals we set as a government. While maintaining enough political support, if I may add, promises were made during the election. There are three options regarding the budgeting of the four main branches of the government. It's either we increase, maintain, or decrease the funding. Increasing will result in an improvement of the branch, which will unlock new possible policy options. Maintaining will keep the funding, resulting in no visible change. Decreasing causes a loss of efficiency in that branch. The amount of money spent, it's how efficiently we spend it. It's true that many of our policies could be far better implemented. Our welfare systems are full of issues that need to be addressed. For instance, we have to be careful as to what we fund so we have resources remaining for another investment project. I'm going to say we probably have to keep true to our election. As much as we realistically can, if we fail at improving our economy, the promises don't mean much in the big picture. Before we begin our discussion, there is one more thing that I want to voice my opinion on. As we manage the government budget, we can to go into debt to invest in different branches. I'm going to assume that's we can go into debt to invest in different branches. Get rid of the word too. However, under these circumstances, it would worsen the economic crisis if we push it too far. It's difficult for us to raise debt with the current unhealthy economy, but we can increase the amount of debt we can take as the economy improves. Spend as much as we can. A stimulating strategy could have positive political effects with increased support. Given the current state of the country, improving economic situation is a politically priority right now. More so than ever if we want to win the 58 election. This budget will also be applicable to our entire term. It is very critical that we plan correctly. Let's begin then. Which branch should we discuss first? Start at the top. Our healthcare system is vast and provides free services to most of our citizens. However, the quality of our health services is far worse in low-income and rural areas. Therefore, I think that we should receive more funding to address this disparity. I agree. I recently began an investigation into healthcare in Narble, and the numbers are not good. If we don't increase spending on health services, we at least need to maintain it. Otherwise, we are putting lives at risk. We have just started a new analysis on what would happen if a pandemic struck Swordland. According to the results, if our healthcare facilities remain at their current state, the death toll would be unimaginable. I'm not even talking about the damage to the economy. This is a matter of life and death, Mr. President, and it should be treated as such. That is indeed worrying if we try and fix whatever we can as the government. Law enforcement. I would like to have an increase in the funding of law enforcement to increase the size of police force and raise salaries. We have so many internal threats to tackle, and I'm already stretching my units far too thin with the limited resources allocated to me. Law enforcement is certainly a high priority, however, I feel tackling internal corruption is of far higher importance than increasing our police presence. Directing the funds to my department would solve the problem at its root. Corruption is still rampant, all the police in the world won't help us. We need a specialized anti-corruption police unit, which we could create if the funds were directed to me. I agree with Miss Morgner. We should not reward a structure that is responsible for an ever-increasing number of human rights violations. Additionally, corruption is the reason of our government inefficiencies. It needs to be tackled. The police are there to serve and protect the people of Swordland, Miss Wilder, and that is exactly what we were doing. More funding will allow us to take care of our police forces. It is quite a simple choice, given the current status of the country. I'm going to agree with Nia. Opinions on the military. What is there to hear about? I already voiced my opinions. Rumberg is coming whether we like it or not. If not this year, next year. If not next year, the year after that. Mr. President, you and I have shared responsibility to protect this nation from its enemies, and I intend to do so until my last breath. I will say this with certainty. If Rumberg doesn't make a move against Swordland in 2 or 3 years, my name is not Iosef Lancia. Iosef was beginning to lose control of the volume of his voice. There can be no argument against increasing the budget for our army when there is an enemy on our doorstep, waiting for us to make one wrong move. Anyone who thinks otherwise is a fool. Mr. Lancia. Right. Pardon my theatrics, sir. But this is a serious matter. The future of our country is up to you, Mr. President. Well, here is an argument. The armed forces does nothing but eat away financial resources destined for our people while stoking fears for an upcoming war. The issues of Rumberg can be solved diplomatically. What kind of a message are we sending to them and the whole world if we suddenly start ramping up our military budget? That we are ready to defend our nation, Miss Walder. Exactly. We need to be as diplomatic as possible. Education. Our education system is lacking not only in funding but also in modern curricular principles. Our outdated curriculum is wasting our youth. That is the reason why I advocate 2 things. An increase of the budget to improve access to education in rural areas, and a new education reform. To be honest, Swordland is lacking compared to Arcasia and United Contana when it comes to education levels. The backbone of any country is its people, and we need to protect our future. We need to ensure the new generation is as well educated as their counterparts in more modern countries. Nonsense! Swordland is still here because of this very system that you insult. How can you insult a system that teaches our sons and daughters the principles of national identity and pride? We won't be compared to other countries. Swordland is Swordland. I agree with Lilius. Swordland is Swordland. I must also remind you that we promised that we were going to focus on education during our campaign. I tell you what, so we've definitely got the old guard standard. We've got the new guard standard. He just wants to improve health. And this guy's in charge of the economy in the meeting. You're right, Lucian. We can't let people down. About the budget, we can proceed. Very good. Talking points from everyone. Well then. Time to make decisions on the budget has come. Consider it with care. Simon placed a stack of papers on my table. I turned the first page. Okay. Final budget is 1. Healthcare. Wow, it makes a difference of 2. Interesting. Law and order. Education. Wait, what was the first one? Oh, healthcare. Education, military, and that would be finish. Let's not finish yet. I'm actually going to decrease my military. Call it a daring move with Rumburg, but I'm going to go for de-escalation. I'm also trying to isolate us a bit, so I don't think I'm really going to be making friends, which is also doesn't work with this policy. We'll see how it goes. Education, law and order. I do want to increase education. That cost me 3. Oh, so an increase cost me 3, a decrease gains me 2. That's rough. So if I was to go and... Whoops, sorry. That would put me on a -3. Do I dare take my budget to a -6? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Let's see what happens. This is insane, is all I'm gonna say. Let's do it. Are you sorry about your decisions? Not in the slightest. I think I'm about to cripple my country. I had finished allocating the government budget to the satisfaction of some cabinet members and the dismay of others. Then I knew this would define a significant part of our term. We have a deficit on our hands. We will need to resort to debt to finance future investments. This situation can have adverse effects if we don't strike a balance. Agreed. Well then, let's start with law enforcement. Thank you for this decision, Mr. President. I knew you would see reason on this, considering our internal security threats at an all-time high. I still disagree with Ms. Graff on how the money ought to be spent, but the increased funding is certainly a step in the right direction. It needs greater budget due to increased threats. I trust you to push the Ministry of Interior and Justice forward. We will be able to achieve positive results in the coming year, I can assure you. We will tackle corruption and the backlog of cases head on. The increased funding is very welcome. We can finally go after some comprehensive improvements by building new schools and improving the education system. Surely a well-funded and larger Ministry of Education would benefit everyone. Our future depends on our children. Education is the first step in the fight against ignorance. Education is our future, and we will not be sidelined. Our focus on it is clear, Ms. Walder. Thank you. It is great to see a positive change in the attitude of the administration for the first time in a decade. Yikes. Sierra clearly wasn't finished, but didn't interject. Iosif chimed in. This is a disgrace. Rumburg is at our doorstep, and the armed forces already have a laundry list of problems. This was a grave mistake that will surely pay for in time. Lucian seemed as if he was about to say something, but looked down at his notepad when Iosif eyed him. Your talent and expert... Nah, I don't want to blow smoke up him. Concessions had to be made. Is there a higher priority than our national security? I doubt it. Thank you, sir. The health budget increase will help me to focus on improvements. Our people will now be safer than ever. I am also planning to tackle issues like the lack of rural hospitals and the recently worrying numbers of maternal deaths. Welfare must remain a priority for our term. There is no other way around it. Healthcare is very important for us, and as we move forward, it will improve drastically. Yeah, we'll go for that one. It feels invigorating to have the weight of the government behind my cause. That covers all branches. Each minister will approach you with their respective policy requests and expectations over the next year. Thank you for your time and participation in this significant moment. The meeting is concluded. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time and effort. The ministers bid their farewells, some excitedly, others dejectedly. The cabinet slowly dispersed out of the White Room. The budget for our term was concluded. And we are in so much debt. So we also made some problems. Oh no, wait, there is one here. Decreased funding. That's a problem. Decaying combat readiness. Discontent military personnel. We have consistent economy. Our economy strategy is closely aligned with the type of development doctrine that we are promoting, which emphasizes the importance of promoting sustainable economic growth. Increased education funding, increased health funding. Relieved welfare system. The welfare system has seen some successful improvements that have alleviated some of the strain caused by a lack of funds and political mismanagement. However, not all of the issues have been resolved, and the system is still facing challenges. Okay, we have a report. Lucien Gallard reported so far that they have been able to get in total 87 signatures behind the proposal. Efforts are underway to increase the support and to reach out to necessary members. Okay, so we're up to 87. 1954 Swedish government budget. After a marathon 18 hours of negotiations, the Swedish governmental budget for the current term has been finalized. The government envisages spending around 40 billion SR next year, almost 29 billion more than this year. The 1954 budget sees the first measures for more internal security being introduced. While the details of the allocation of the increased security funding is not yet clear, it is expected that the Ministry of Interior and Ministry of Justice will both benefit. Additionally, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, two of the smaller ministries in Sweden, will see their budget grow more. Reign ignores security threats. Of course it goes against me, because that's what Sweden today does. Yeah. -6. Well, hopefully this gets finished soon and we get some money back. I don't know. But we're going to go and hit continue. And we're going to enter Chapter 2, a new Swordland. And so on that, there we have our game save. And we are going to leave it there, ladies and gentlemen. Chapter 1 has finally finished. We are a country in debt. But hey, if you're not a country in debt, are you even trying? And so when we come back next time, we of course have to now be much more careful with our spending. And hopefully we also see a few things coming back. Because, I mean, I was maybe hoping this was going to go up to the next level. Maybe some things over here can... Hang on, I think this was the worst hit country. Lack of healthcare services, high levels of poverty, widespread protests, logistical problems, lack of road network. I don't know, I feel like some of it's slightly improved. Nope, this is definitely one of the worst areas. This is the worst area we have. Okay, so we'll come back next time. We've got a lot of reports to read. We've potentially even got some on the world map. And so yeah, we'll see what our decisions have gone and done for the country. Hopefully great things, because we have a deficit to balance out. And so until next time, until we see you again, no matter where that may be, we hope that you will stay safe, happy, and healthy.